it is that time in life to do a mid-20s reflection. Now, when I think back to when I was younger, and I don't even know what age, but I just remember when I was younger watching certain movies and thinking my 20s would probably have been more fulfilling than my 20s have been. Now, my 20s have definitely been interesting, I guess, but they kind of have been kind of boring. And I have tried so many different things, and there's some things which I don't necessarily have regrets on. There are some things that I definitely do have regrets on of how I have spent my time. But I'm also proud of myself for the things that I have tried and I have experimented with. I am happy to be where I am now. Even a year ago, I probably would have not said that. I probably would have said I'm not happy to be where I am. I felt so uncomfortable even a year ago in my own skin. 2 years ago was the most uncomfortable I've ever felt in my own skin because I just did not feel like myself at all. And last year, I felt like I started to really come into my skin, starting to shed these layers. And I feel like right now I'm at this point in my life where I am so done apologizing. Like, I am not where I want to be in my life, but I am right here and I'm on my own timeline, and I'm not comparing myself in my life to anyone else's timeline or anyone else's path, which I'm really happy to be in this place. So I guess you could say in my teenage years, my late teens, I think I probably felt like I would be a doctor. I mean, there was a period of my time where I was like so obsessed with school, so obsessed with studying. But when I go back to before that, when I was more myself and before I went into that academic world, which was like completely a trauma response. Like I've said this before in a different video, but the shame video, I think my academics was like a complete trauma response. It was like not who I was. But before that, I always loved doing these creative things, and I always loved watching movies. I feel like I watched so many movies growing up with my dad, my brother, and on weekends, on rainy days, it was like one of my favorite things to do. And a lot of these movies like would be high school movies or all these 90 movies, which were like the best. I don't really watch movies anymore, and it's something I'm meaning to get into this year to make more time to watch films that are like actually really good. I just am very selective with the digital media I consume for the most part. I mean, I'm gonna get into that because sometimes like I do get distracted by short form, which I'm really trying to be very intentional about, and I feel like that has also had a very big impact on my 20s. So, where do I start? My 20s have been quite boring. I have technically traveled the world, went to university, I've done certain things like this. I've had some very interesting experiences. They're kind of like one-off experiences because I just didn't want to experience this again. I feel like there's certain things which I tried. I could have been more open to trying certain things, but a lot of these things like went against my morals. I ended up in some very interesting situations which I could have went down this path and went into more interesting experiences. But the thing is, like, the way I ended up in these interesting experiences, like I've had some stories from LA. I don't know what it is about LA. There's just something in that space. So there's something in the energy, there's something in the air, because I've been to LA a few times and I'm actually terrified. I'm actually terrified to step foot in LA. But the first time I went to LA, like a lot changed. I was only there for a few days. This was the very beginning of COVID, when I was literally a teenager, and I was like, I'm gonna take time off school because I already transferred universities at this time. My 20s, I feel like I still have so much of my 20s to go, but so far in my 20s, I definitely feel like I wasn't scared to try certain things. Okay, maybe I was scared. I still tried certain things if they felt in alignment with myself. Okay, there's other things I've tried, like doing all these things that your people tell you you're supposed to enjoy in your 20s, but you only really need one experience or two experiences to know, okay, that's not for you. I feel like traveling, it's like that's when you meet interesting people, and that's when you come across so many opportunities. And there's so many opportunities that I've been offered that I've also said no to. I've said no to most opportunities I've had presented to me, and it sounds arrogant. Like, it sounds arrogant to turn these things down, but the thing is with me, if like something just feels off or fake or does not resonate with me, or just feels like this is going to be a bad situation, you have to protect yourself, because at the end of the day, like, I wholeheartedly believe that if you are moving towards something with intention and it's like you're following your soul and you're figuring out your path and you don't sway about your morals, and if you end up, like, I've ended up in like some situations which I was just like shell shocked, and I kind of just like went along with certain things, but I was like, okay, well, this was not what I thought it was, or I was just like, became friends with the wrong person, or not even friends, like became acquaintances. I mean, I have stories. This sounds so vague. This doesn't even make sense, like someone hearing this, but I have so many stories, especially about LA, and some stories about Mexico too, but like LA was crazy. Anyways, my first time I went there, I remember walking down the street, and there's this guy who is paparazzi guys. He was like taking pictures of me. I mean, it sounds so bad to say, but this happened to me. This guy was like hiding in the bushes, and I was like, bro, I'm not famous. I got a hitchhike drive with this guy who I met at this smoothie bar in Venice Beach. I was like, oh, can you know where this is, whatever. Like, who the hell gets in a car with a stranger? I did. I've done certain things like that all the time, which is, I put myself in these situations all the time, which I would say maybe someone shouldn't do. There is these horror stories in things that happened to people for a reason, but at the same time, I don't know, I always just had faith that like nothing bad was going to happen to me, because when I was younger, I was actually like suicidal. Like when I was a teenager, I found out I was indestructible. Okay. I found out I was not going to die. I found out that I was divinely protected. And it is a real thing. Like I found out, I'm not going before my time. Okay. So I just became kind of fearless and would do stuff like that. Anyways, so this guy, where he drove me from, where did he drive me to? Like, he literally drove me to Beverly Hills, and I went to this like Beverly Hills, that famous hotel, and I took like a photo shoot outside of it, and I also was like, can you take my picture? And he's like, yeah, sure. So he literally took my pictures all around it, and while he was taking my picture all around this hotel, this guy pulls up in this like very nice, expensive car, and then this guy was like, he was like this producer or something, and I'm going to shoot this, like film this thing, and I have this was like one of my first opportunities, and it was like just handed to me. But the thing is, I don't fucking trust anyone. I don't trust anyone. And at that time, I forgot about my dream to make movies. Like that was not in my mind. I was just kind of drifting and wandering, and this has been like the core of my 20s so far. I've just drifted and wandered, and everyone thinks I'm so fucking aloof, and I'm not aloof. It's just that I think you do need to follow your desire, and your desire will lead you places, and you'll figure out certain things about yourself, and you'll get like little tokens, so you'll get like puzzle pieces, and sometimes you'll go on this adventure and this will be a puzzle piece, and you won't understand why you had this experience, but then later you will understand why you have this experience, and will fit into a different puzzle piece. So I feel like everything that I explored for the most part had a purpose and had a reason. I don't know, that was just like one of my experiences with LA. I don't want to go on that tangent, but I don't know, like I didn't want to get in the car with this guy, because like this guy had bad energy, and I'm like, what the fuck, like I don't know, I was not into artists at the time. Like I completely abandoned all my creative pursuits when I was a teenager. I abandoned them so easily to go down the science path, and then I abandoned science path to go randomly aimlessly explore. I didn't really know who I was. I was like 19. I was just wandering. I did not understand my look. I did not understand myself as a person, really. I've always been a deep person, but like I did not understand myself as a person as I do now. I have the sense of self I do now, even though it's crazy because it's like not even like that was so long ago. I mean, it is 2026. That was like 2020. That was 2019. I mean, it is a chunk of time, but it's really not that much time. But I feel it's night and day. I'm just not that person anymore. I'm not so, I don't know, aloof. Anyways, so there's certain experiences, if you really can just in your 20s, like I think that people should explore, because you can get opportunities like that. But I also think it's like very important to understand that faith and having self-belief and just believing in yourself and your core is so important. There's so many other opportunities and jobs even that I feel like I've been offered, but I also think that some of these jobs I've been offered were tests, and I've just met these people in the most random places. I got offered this job to do marketing for Apple Pay in Nova Scotia, because this guy was like the owner of all of it or something like that. And how I met this person was on my birthday when I came back from New York and Brazil. I went back to Nova Scotia, and it was my birthday, and I went out with my sister trying to make amends and trying to bond with her, because I haven't seen her in like forever, and one last try. And I was fucking hammered because I don't know why. Like it was like my first time drinking in a long time, and I'm not a drinker. I feel like I've been talking about alcohol recently, but I just have never been a drinker in my life, and I've just have certain incidences when I ever have drank, and I've had like one shot or two shots and I'm like drunk. I actually think I'm allergic to alcohol because I actually get drunk. I can't function off of nothing. It's actually ridiculous. And this guy was like, she sent me a shot or whatever. And then he came over to our table and he was like friends with my sister's sister, which was there. And this person, I don't know, we started talking about like these business things and stuff like that. I don't know. I've had really interesting conversations like that with like certain people, and even going to like there's certain situations I've had in New York and I'm like, this is like out of a movie, and but these are just like one-off situations, and going to the random places like that and putting yourself out there and really just like being unfiltered. I feel like I am, every time I almost run into someone, it's like I've been given this opportunity, and I think it is because I've just am so unfiltered. So I've often wondered like, okay, well, could I be way more ahead with what I'm doing if it wasn't so like, oh, I don't need your help, I'm doing it my way, this way is not pure, this way is demonic. But at the end of the day, like, you have to follow your soul. And if you feel someone's giving you opportunity because it's not pure, like someone's like trying to give you an opportunity because they want something from you, or there's always something. Like, the thing is, like, it's very, very rare for someone to give you an opportunity and it to be genuinely like they're not trying to take something from you. And I knew that. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this producing thing in LA. Maybe if I actually just like said yes to some things, like I've said no to so many things. And if I said yes to that, perhaps like I could have been in film and done movies and all these things. And maybe if I didn't just follow my path and wasn't so aloof, like maybe I could go and try to do these things and act and work in other people's movies, but that's not my dream, right? Like, my dream is not to do other people's films. I want to create my own films from my mind, and because it's more about my message. And the reason I want to act in it is because I don't want to give that audience. I really believe in what I want to create. I don't care how far I am. I don't care how long, like how much refining the vision takes, because I'm dedicated. Like, I don't care if it takes me 20 years to perfect it, because I will. I don't care, because I know that's my purpose now, and I know that's my path, and I'm so grateful for that. But that leads me to the next thing, is like, comparison will destroy you. I let age get to me so much, and I shouldn't even be doing this like mid-20s. Like, who gives a fuck? Someone else in their mid-20s can be in a completely different path than you are on your mid-20s. And I actually was just on my phone, which is horrible. I need to delete the short form platforms. I mean, they're not all bad, but I saw this guy passed away. There's this YouTube guy, or this self-development guy, and I was just like, oh wow, I liked him. Like, I didn't like him, I had a crush on him, but I liked him. I thought he was so cool, and he passed away, and I saw that, I'm like, oh, I don't know, like, I know people pass away. I mean, I have someone in my family passing away right now. I feel like we're constantly reminded of death in this world, which also can be a gift, because you're constantly reminded, life's short, do what you want to do, follow what your soul calls you to do. You know, I remember one time, like, I think I was thinking like something about what this guy posted. I thought, wow, he's very ahead for his age. I think this was a few years ago, like 22, he had like millions or something like that. And I was like, he's very ahead for age, but now at 25, he's dead, which is horrible. It's devastating, but I mean, it's very young to go, but maybe that was his soul contract or his path. I don't know. I mean, things like that happen. It's hard to tie it all to destiny, because it is sad when people die. The point is, you cannot compare your path to anyone else's path. I feel like I really used to compare my path to other people's path, and I think social media can have a really big effect on this, because people do post their highlight reels, and it's not that they shouldn't, because if people were to post themselves crying, like, people would criticize that, and people will say you're wanting attention. So I mean, people can't really win. And I feel like social media, for the most part, especially when it comes to like Instagram or stuff like that, or photo apps, it's not designed for depth. And that doesn't mean people aren't deep. It's just like, okay, that's where you post your pictures that you take, so you can have a little collage. Like, it's not that deep, but it does affect us because we internalize it. A lot of us take a lot of things personal, and it's natural to compare our journey to someone else's. But I also think it's important to see, like, okay, well, what do you have? You know, like, we always look at what someone else has and what we don't have, but we never say, okay, like, maybe that person has success and has this, but there's always a price to everything, and everyone has different obstacles in life. So I think it's also really important to just really stay focused on your path. I didn't realize at the time, but I think I did have fear of doing my 20s wrong. And I don't know, like, I did go to university, and, you know, I constantly would leave and try different things, and I was constantly leaving, and I never went to class. And the reason why I was in university partly was because, like, it was literally conditioning. Most people went to university where I'm from, it was really never even like a conversation like, oh, you could do something else. Like, it didn't even occur to me at the time. That was just like my complete environment. I just like never even realized you could do something. And the thing is, like, we didn't even have TikTok came, like certain social platforms came out a couple years after I graduated high school. So I mean, obviously YouTube and stuff existed, but I was just not familiar with that world. But I went on the path that I had to go on, and it never really made sense. Like, my path, I felt like so alone, and my path never made sense until a few years ago. And maybe that's early as well. Like, I feel like to understand what you're here to do when you're in your early 20s is actually early, because I feel like a lot of people don't actually figure out what they're meant to do in their early 20s. But I also spent most of my time in high school, and most of my time since high school to my early 20s. Like, I had a few crazy incidences like where I was like crazy, but other than that, I spent most of my time in introspection and really trying to figure out who I was. And even though I've talked about how life forced me to go into this like deep inward turn, I've always been introspective, and I've always had no choice but to go inwards to myself, because I struggled from mental health since a very young age. I've always been like, who is this? And I've always kind of had this like existentialism and why am I here, even before my dramatic spiritual awakening. I feel like your 20s should be to find yourself. It should be to try different things, and it should be to fail at as many things as possible, because the second you try something, the second you know it's not for you. Like, people around me were always telling me, pick something, like literally pick something. You're so aloof. I'm not aloof, I'm just exploring. How are you supposed to know what is really for you if you don't try other things? I went to university my first year. I literally transferred universities, and then I was in university for like a half semester, and then I went and I sold everything, and I backpacked, and then I went to Bali, and then I au paired, and then I had to come back because of COVID, and they're like, listen, like, this is the last flight to Canada. So I came back just trying to like figure out social media and just understand it from the background. And then I fell deeply in love so unexpectedly, and completely let that destroy me. But at the same time, I ended up going through a spiritual awakening and like understanding why I incarnated to this earth, and like understanding my purpose, forcing myself to go inwards. And then spent 3 years just healing in isolation and purging pain. Like, every day was like healing in nature and like letting go of all this trauma that I went through in my teenage years and my early adult years. I've spent time exploring. I've spent a lot of time healing, and I've have experienced an introduction to certain crazy sides. I definitely could have went down certain opportunities to get handed opportunities and things, but I know these opportunities would have compromised my soul. So I was willing to say, you know what, like, no, I'm gonna figure this out my way. I trust if I'm meant to create this, like I've came here to create this certain thing, you have to believe that. You have to believe in yourself, because no one else is going to believe in yourself. No one else is going to understand your vision. Don't try to convince other people. You may need to convince other people when you're building a team to get people to believe in that vision. My grandfather, he had this business, and one time I was trying to help make this video for their marketing thing or whatever. I went to the offices and I said, why did you, and I was kind of asking, I was like, why have you worked here so long? You've been working here since like 17, and now you're 70. And that was most of the people working there. This is unheard of in business, to have a company and the employees to be working there for that long. That is the rarest thing in business. And they would talk about how my grandfather just believed in his vision. They believed in himself and how he lit up. They would say how just being around him, even if they didn't really like understand what was going on in his mind, that energy was contagious, and they wanted to be a part of something more, and they wanted to be a part of something bigger, and to have that like community and that family aspect. So I do think like when you're building a team of something, or you're doing something independently, say if I do want to make a film one day, if I make a film from something that I wrote one day, and I want to hire the team of artists or creatives, like I want to hire each one of them to fit my vision, but at the same time, like I'm going to have to translate my vision to them. So sometimes you do have to get other people to see your vision, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how like sometimes when you have a family member, you can find yourself over explaining yourself to get their approval. Like I have over explained so many times to my parents or to even like other people, but how could they understand something when this vision was not given to them? This is your dream, this is your vision, it was not given to them. How could they understand? It was implanted in you for a reason, and you don't need anyone's permission. Some people just do what they're told. You have to break the rules a little bit. I was saying about about how having a moral compass is important and how you definitely can be successful if that's like your main priority in life, because a lot of people in their 20s, their main goal is to become successful. That matters more than anything. It matters more than experience. It matters more than becoming cultured. It matters more than going out with friends. And there's not one right or wrong way. Like, that matters most to them. You definitely can get ahead and look like you have everything in life if you're willing to compromise your moral compass. You definitely can do that. There are successful people, that's how they got ahead, because they're willing to walk over people. They took opportunities and they didn't care what they had to sell of themselves. That's not really impressive. I'm not really impressed by that. I'm not really impressed by someone who would walk over people or someone that's not being authentic or something like that. I value doing things the right way, and I do believe the future of anything is people creating from alignment from their souls. Facade and all of this other things is going to fall away. Even if someone is seemingly getting ahead from doing, something that's maybe not ethical, eventually they pay the price, whether that's in karma, whether that's in, something else, whether that's in the inner turmoil that they have to sift through. Because the thing is, like, someone can look externally rich and be so internally poor. The external is not always a reflection of the internal, and that's really something very, very important to understand, especially in this world where there's this unequal wealth gap now, where you can get money not from it being a reflection of everything that you've learned, but from selling. Oh, with that being said, you do have to break the rules a little bit. There's this quote I love, and it goes something like, there is no such thing as a successful woman who has not misbehaved a little bit. I love that. You do have to misbehave, and you have to break free of your good girl conditioning. Do you know how hard it is to break free from your little good girl conditioning? Oh my god, it's so hard, because you literally have to go through your own womb. You have to go through yourself and your DNA, and oh my god. And I feel like a lot of women that try to break free from this, it catapults. It comes back at them. I think when a lot of women are trying to break free from the good girl, they become like bad girls, and then they have to come back and integrate that. I don't know. It makes sense. It made sense to me. It makes sense in my head. I just don't know how to say that. It's okay. Like, it's also give yourself permission if you do choose something and you realize it's not for you. Maybe you got married too young. Young love. I've had that, and I'm so grateful I did not get married. Oh my god. This person was constantly saying, let's get married, let's get married. In my head, I'm like, no. I loved this person, but I was like, I could not picture being married to this person. Even though I love this person, I was like, this is not the person I could picture having kids with or something. If I do have kids, who knows? It's not a life sentence. I think that we make decisions in the moment, like we think that it's going to be forever. I think when you're younger, especially before your frontal lobe is developing, we think that we will feel this way forever. So sometimes you have to give yourself permission to leave something and to start over. It's not really starting over, because you're starting over from experience. You're starting over from, okay, I know this is not for you. And I think it's also important to have faith and have trust to understand that nothing in life is ever really starting over. Everything is just about evolution. And every time you go through something, you had to go through that for a certain experience, maybe to pay off a karmic debt, maybe to, like, who knows, there's a million of reasons why you could have experienced something in life. But don't be afraid to change, because the thing is, we like to think sometimes we have invested so much into something, so we're like, well, I'm not going to change this degree, or I'm not going to leave this job, or I'm not going to leave this person because I've invested so much in them. But the past only exists in our memory, so it's like you were compromising your future and the possibilities and staying in something that doesn't fulfill you anymore. It is okay to change. Like, we are here to change. It's okay if something did not work out, and that does not mean you were a failure. I could be a failure in society's eyes with the amount of things I've leaved. People would say, oh, you're flaky, you have commitment issues, and I just know that's not true. I just know that my soul refuses to settle, and I also understand that failure is just refinement. Someone said to me in my family, they're like, well, you've been saying you want to do this for years. You've been saying you want to do this podcast for years. Okay, well, finding your voice. Also, I did not explain myself, because that person is like, someone says something like that to you, like they want a reaction out of you. They don't want to understand. That is not support. Right? So, but that made me think, okay, well, you don't understand because you've never gone on this path to make a podcast. This person in my family also wants to do a podcast and is talking about it. But when I talk about it, somehow it's like, oh, you're just dreaming. We need to take action on the things that we feel called to do, but sometimes it's just not the season to take action. Sometimes you have to be a dreamer and just let that thought marinate. Sometimes you have other things in life that you have to tend to. Sometimes you have to tend to stability, and you have to put something on the back burner, and you have to trust that. Like, when you're meant to do it, you will. Trust within yourself. This has been actually a major theme with me because I've wanted to do this podcast, and this is just one of the things I want to do. And this podcast is actually just going to be a stepping stone to like actually everything I want to do. And there's so much things I want to do. And sometimes when I get into my own head and I let those thoughts creep up to me, other people's thoughts, not even my thoughts, because I believe in myself and I know what I'm here for. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to protect that belief at all costs, because belief is literally what creates your reality. Like belief is the most important thing. So you cannot have that doubt seeping in. So when other people's doubt would seep into my subconscious, I would think like, you're right, like what have I done? Like why do I think I can create this transformative, impactful type of film one day that like transforms the industry? Like who do I think I am to do that? Like literally, who do I think I am? And I would sometimes go on walks for just 2 hours with no music or no podcast sometimes to just process like how I was going to do this. But I also had to realize I have so many years to grow into my soul and to become, and fear is just an illusion, and I refuse to have fear injected into me. If you know what you came here for and you're passionate about it and you want to create something that leaves an impact and help, you have to have faith. You have to have faith that the universe is conspiring with you to create something, and that what you want to create, I don't even like the word of the universe, but I just don't know what else to say. The universe also wants you to create it as well. It's wanting you to create and use that vessel, but sometimes you have to just honor the season you're in. And a lot of the time that does mean surviving. And this is just the world that we live in, where we have been set up to survive. We forget about our dreams. Like people would say to me like, oh, you understand the luxury it is to follow your dreams. Do you think I really don't fucking know that? I mean, yeah, I guess people can make assumptions and look at a photo that literally has no podcast or has no depth behind it, and they can make some assumptions based off their own projection. And people constantly make projections about things, but like I've never had stability. Like I've been homeless since I was a teenager. My mom would constantly kick me out of the house whenever I would do anything that she didn't like. And I was like a quiet child, but the things I would do that she would not like would be crying in the bathroom, and she would get stressed because she'd think I was like gonna kill myself. And I was like so sad when I was a teenager, but I went to her for help, and anyway, she kicked me out all the time. And to live there, I had to go on medications, which completely destroyed my mental health worse and made it worse. But essentially, like, there was a period of time where she kicked me out for months. And so actually I was living alone off and on since I think I was 15. I forget the actual age. I think it said 16 one time. I think it was like 15 or maybe 14 was the first time she actually kicked me out. I don't even know. There's been so many different times. There was nights I'd walk around, having nowhere to sleep. So I just walk around, laying on the grass by the ditch one time. And one time I did have this friend, which allowed me to stay at her house for a couple months. But I was a teenager, so I understand, like, I am not born in a third world country, but at the same time, like, my parents didn't help me with anything, really. I just think it's so easy to, like, look at someone else's life and just to make assumptions. And I've actually struggled so much with just trying to find stability. I've had one place in my 20s that I lived at for 1 year. And I actually believe, like, this was when I went through my spiritual awakening. Like, I just got this right before I went through my Kundalini, like, dramatic awakening. And I do believe this was, like, the universe, God, like, helping me, because I was like, I'm gonna go fucking insane waking up to everything that I saw and everything that I experienced. Like, I needed that, like, safe place. And so I do feel like that was a gift. But after that, constantly the root and my stability has constantly been ripped away from me. So traveling actually became a way where I could really just live very cheaply. Like, I have been on flights and left countries with, like, hardly any money, and then I figured out how to make some money when I was traveling through different ways. Like, I au paired when I was 19 as the first kind of thing I did, and then I used to look after people's pets, and then I also got a marketing job online. And there's just, like, different things, like, constantly just trying to survive. And I think it's hard to create anything when you are just trying to survive. And I think sometimes, like, you do need to have that grace for yourself and understand that if you are not really handed things, like, we're all given different obstacles in life. There are things I have been handed to live in Canada and have Canadian citizenship. Obviously, like, it's an advantage or something like that. But when it comes to, like, other things, I think people make assumptions, because, like, my parents they have, like, waterfront properties now. It's kind of ridiculous. Like, why was I homeless at this age when, like, it's not like you're poor. And that was constantly like frustrating for me as well, because people would have this like assumption about me, and I'm like, that's just not true. Like I've worked since I was 12. I've been constantly just trying to survive, and that's okay. If I can't do art until my 30s or whatever, then that's the way it is. There's no timeline. I think you have to remove the age, and you have to remove the timeline from things, and like you don't need to be this like Oscar winner actor or these things before you're 30. You don't even need to do these things anyways. Like, why do you even want recognition? Like, why do you even want that? Why do you want to prove? I mean, I think it's like nice to be able to prove to yourself that you can do. It's like showing your inner child, like, look, I can execute on this. It's showing the world, look what I can do when you believe what's within. I think that motivates me, but that's not the why. Like, that's kind of like the ego speaking. So the soul, it's always the soul's timing, not the ego's timing. And don't ever let your ego try to interfere with that. Who cares? If you follow your soul, that's what brings fulfillment, and that's why you need to do it. It's not for anything external. Like, never ever trade anything internal for anything external, because you will regret it. The real riches are the internal riches. That doesn't mean you can't have external things, because it's fine for external things to match your internal, but the internal should never be compromised. No matter how low you are, don't compromise your internal. Also, about the comparison thing, I wanted to say, like, people have always said, like, oh my god, you've traveled the world, like, you've been here. Yeah, technically I have. Technically, I've been to all these different countries, but the thing is, like, when I am in a new place, I'm hardly exploring. Like, I would take like 1 day or 2 days, and when I do explore, I'm like, okay, I'm creating something during this day. This is my excuse. Like, I'm constantly working on my laptop in these new environments that I've been in. People have always said to me, oh, lucky for you to take this path. Like, I have to work at my 9 to 5. That's your choice. You have apartment, you have stability, and I made the choice to not have stability and not get a job, because I just have had jobs before, and half these jobs I've had have not even paid me. I worked at this restaurant called Smitty's in Canada, and my manager was a coke addict, and no judgment, seriously, no judgment. I mean, that kind of sounded judgmental. She literally just like stole my tips, and I never even got paid like for all the hours that I worked. And then I worked at this juice press company, and it was like I was really their only employee. It was so small, like pressing juices, whatever. And I loved to work there because I was like, I'm a big health nut. I love fresh juice. They literally didn't even pay me. I worked there for months during university. So I was like, fuck that. I'm not working. I'm just gonna like live as cheap as possible. And that happened to be traveling the way I traveled for the most part. Like, obviously there was flights and stuff like that, but for the most part in the past, the way I traveled was very cheap, but also exhausting, because like sometimes you're helping out with something, and like that takes your time and your energy, and you have to like respond to people. So pick your poison. People like to like glamorize traveling, and yes, I could go to the beach and take a photo or something, but it's like that's one moment in time. Okay, so I have been gone for like an hour. I need to stop taking breaks in between podcasts, because a 5-minute break turns into like 1 hour of me doing God knows what, procrastinating, making stupid things. But anyways, it doesn't matter, I'm back. A major thing I realized about my 20s is how much disappointment I have felt with relationships. And I'm not talking about like romantic relationships, I'm just talking about in relationships in general. I always hoped, I guess, and felt like my 20s would be the time where I would meet tons of people and have tons of different relationships, and it was just never the case. Like, I've had, I would say, like one profound relationship in my 20s, and even that turned out to be a disappointment. I mean, not every relationship in life, like, I'm a big believer that relationships are here to teach us something, and not every relationship is to just be sunshine and rainbows and butterflies. It's not that I've just don't have any friends because I'm such a problem, because I just keep breaking up with like friends. It's just that I just don't put myself into environments to meet people. There is certain situations where I guess I've been invited to hang out with certain groups of girls or certain groups of friends, but I feel like I do have a pretty good read on reading people, and a lot of these things that I've been invited to, I've just not been interested in. And there's been a few times where I've forced myself to be interested in these things, I guess, for companionship, but it wasn't even like felt like I wanted companionship. I was just aware of the fact that, you know, I should have friends. I shouldn't be alone all the time, kind of like I am now. Like, I'm aware of it, but at the same time, like, I don't feel lonely. But at the same time, yeah, we are programmed for human connection. So I just wish I kind of had more experience with people. And I think with a lot of people's trajectories in life, that's kind of the case, like where it's either high school or you go to university and then you're in the workforce. And those are kind of the people that you meet in your life versus like, if you move to a town or having a neighbor, there's not actually that many chances in life to meet new people. And I think like most people meet their friends for life that they're going to be friends with in their 20s. I'm pretty sure that's pretty accurate. And it's just not been the case for me. So I do know I'm on this different path. And I think in the future, once I really lean into the things I want to create in the future, I think that I will come into alignment with people that I actually do want to be friends with. But then I also have to take into account that when you are living a life where you want to create something meaningful, like that kind of has to be your life. And that does fulfill me. I think I'm the kind of person where I'm realizing that if I don't have creative fulfillment, and this could be in many different ways because there's so many different things I want to do in my life that I would say fall into that category of creative fulfillment. Like this podcast or whatever I'm doing could be creative fulfillment. It's just one of the things I want to do in this creative space. But every different thing that I want to do will support one another. You have to start somewhere, right? So I'm starting with this podcast. There's so many different things I want to do, okay? When it comes to any kind of relationship in my life, like I don't feel like I would feel fulfilled or happy unless like my creative fulfillment was fulfilled first. I think that that's the kind of like the core of what has to be my focus, me creating from within, and then everything else can be like off of that, if that making sense. I don't know if I'm wording it right. It is like 2 a.m. right now because I waited. It was like 12 when I started this, and now it's like I don't even know what time it is. I think it's past 2 a.m. Oh my god, it's 3 a.m. So much for waking up before. I mean, actually, I have a meeting at 8, so I might just stay up all night and just like reset my system tomorrow night. I would say like that actually works for me. I hate doing those. I don't do those that often if I really feel like I need to reset my system, but I do. And honestly, I've been feeling a little bit down on myself for this month of January. I mean, I know the New Year's made up, okay? But the thing is, like, I just love mental challenges and I will take any opportunity I can to change. And like, if I set a mental thing for me and I fail, it's like, I'm pretty hard on myself because I don't know. It's like, why did I set myself up for failure? And it's like, why am I not listening to myself? Like, usually if I set a hard rule, I'm not bending. Like, I'll have that relationship with myself. But I feel like with January came, I just been not achieving the goals that I set. I think that that's actually a big lesson in the 20s as well, as like figuring out your rhythm takes time because the typical routine for someone else might not be what works for you. And I think when you also are a woman, like we have these cycles and we operate differently, and there's going to be times where you're so creative and you can talk great, or there's just certain things that are going to align more. And during that time, it's like, okay, maybe you go and you sprint and you do a bunch of these things and it's like you stack up things. I mean, I never do that, but I want to be able to I want to do that more to make my life easier. Like it just takes a lot of like trial and error and a lot of failure to figure out like what your unique rhythm is. Oh, back to what I was saying about relationships. It's not just about romantic relationships or friendships. I've realized that I just don't feel safe with like other people or something, and that's why I need to retreat. It's not that like those people are not interesting. I've always had the mentality, why would I entertain a conversation with someone? Like you can learn so much from people, but then I'm like, really, you don't learn that much? I've never really learned so much from entertaining conversation with people. I mean, I still entertain conversations with people because I'm nice and I have like that people pleasing tendency, and sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm just talking to this person for like 40 minutes at the post office because I'm just being kind, and obviously like they are talking to me, so they probably want someone to talk to. But a lot of times I'm like, I don't actually want to talk to that person. I'm just doing it because I'm nice. But I'd rather just read a book because there's so much more knowledge in a book typically than a conversation with a person. I've always kind of had that mentality. I'm like, well, not that people are for gaining things, but I mean, all relationships are transactional. Well, I just feel so safe when I'm alone, and I feel happy when I'm alone. And when I'm around other people, it's like, it's hell. I realize that a lot of that has come from me having to like self-parent myself and having to like learn how to regulate myself, which everyone has to learn how to regulate their own nervous system. But I think when you do that nervous system regulation, all of that healing work, you are healing your patterns and breaking those cycles. You become very aware of other people's toxic traits when you've like made your own conscious and you've worked to dissolve them. You also become aware of like other people's projections and stuff like that. I think that also makes relationships a lot harder. You would think it makes relationships easier, but I mean it does, I guess, because you start to see like, okay, well this is a projection and nothing's personal and everyone's just projecting on you. But I think it makes it hard in the sense that there's less people that you could actually have long-term connections with. When you are constantly evolving, constantly changing, that also makes it more difficult to have friendships or connections. Also, when you break free from the norm, that makes it difficult. So it's like it's just constantly narrowing your pool, and then it's like you never really feel like you run into people like you, even though there is people like you. And it's not like you have to find someone that's exactly like you. I always thought like, okay, well, I don't need to have friends that have to believe or have the same things as me. Like they can have something completely different they know about and they could teach me and I could teach them, or we just have something shared in common. Like you don't need other people to be exactly like you. But I think you do need to be around people that don't make you feel like an alien, and that don't make you feel like the way you operate or the way you see the world is wrong. I've always felt like people I've around, they're always trying to say something about me or like just something that is inherently wrong with me. Don't talk about the price of that. I don't know, just constantly like nitpicking me and saying something that's wrong with this. Like, oh, you talk about yourself a lot. Oh, you rant a lot. Oh, you do this. It's just, okay, well, I don't see this as a problem. I don't see this as wrong. Putting me down. Why spend time around people like that? 20 is hard because it's like you are figuring out your identity. You're figuring out who you are, and to figure out who you are to survive, sometimes you do have to cut off a lot of people. So sometimes you are losing more people than you're gaining, and that's okay. When it comes to regrets, there are some regrets that I've had, and these regrets have always been when I've gone into peer pressure. I would say like I'm someone who was not heavily swayed when it comes to like going out or doing these things. Like I've had a few moments, and like listen, like I know I've had a couple of pictures on my social media, but listen, like all my times I was out is documented, and I literally made photo shoots out of them, and I literally went half the time to just take a photo shoot because I just love being creative, and I thought it was like retro and cool. And but I really feel like for my age, like I really have not experienced that like crazy party life. Like I've said, I went to a few parties, or I guess I said a different podcast, I went to like a few like university parties, but you know, I live in Canada and it's a small city. It's really not like crazy. It's not like going to a major city and going to a big club. Like I literally have never been to, I mean, I actually was in Cabo. I got dragged to this place, but because this was a group of people, and I just stood in the corner because this person was telling me that cartel was trying to steal me, so I was just like stood there. But yeah, I'm just not, that's not really my scene. I've gotten dragged to certain things through, again, just certain predicaments that I've just got myself into by, I guess, given opportunities, and sometimes opportunities are not what they seem and people lie and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into that tangent, but sometimes you do have to dip your toe in other things because everyone's telling you, you have to do this, like you're going to regret it, you're going to miss out. Well, dabbled my toe in certain things enough to know, okay, that's enough. It's not for me. So I think my only regrets would be maybe like straying from myself a little bit. And it's not like, it's not wrong to like experience what like 95% of like young people are meant to experience, but it's okay to dabble in that. But I think it just felt like an insult to my soul, and it, like even dyeing my hair blonde and all this stuff, I don't know, it's not that big of a deal, but it kind of was like, why are you trying to be like everyone else? You know, all those years I was trying to be like everyone else because of, oh, society tells you this is what you should like, this is what you should enjoy, this is how you should dress. Conditioning gets all of us. I just think about all this time, all those years, like I could have been my soul, I could have been myself. Conditioning got me for a while, for a few years. Another thing is like trying to just enjoy where I am now, because when I was in university, like I wasn't really there. I never went to classes like ever, and didn't even go half the exams because I was just like, well, I'm not going because I don't want to get a bad grade, and I hate this testing environment. It stresses me the hell out. I don't feel like I had a really good university experience, and I could have embraced it, I guess. But then I'm like, well, that's not me. There was a certain instance where I would embrace it. I went to like homecoming once or whatever, but it's just, this was so not me. So it's like me forcing myself to be someone I wasn't. So it's like there's that aspect. There's also the aspect I'm like, well, maybe I should have embraced my experience more. But then if I break my experience, I would have not been me. That would have like, I would have been just like other people that were on that university path and that fit in, and that was not me. So you can't have it all. And I think I have tried to kind of like dip my toe in everything and have it all, but that also robs you of, oh, well, if you're constantly exploring all these different things and you're not really focused on one thing, then you're not really becoming an expert and a specialist. So the thing is, like, I don't have regrets doing all that because now I know what really is for me, right? Like, I feel like I've experimented and stuff. Now I really know who I am. Like, now I know what's for me. Obviously, I get to grow into my soul more as I age, and that's really exciting, and get to grow into my creative things. I don't look at it as like, oh, I'm this age and I should have this figured out. Like, I should be a successful artist. Like, I should have already had this as podcast like years ago. No, because like my path is different, and like there's a lot of shifts that I had to do internally, and a lot of things that I felt like I had to do before I really came to this like creation place, because there's times I showed up and I was just like not myself. Like, I was unraveling. I don't know. It just was like so cringy to me. I'm like, I mean, like, thinking about it, I don't know. But that's also the process. Like, your journey is your journey. And I've said this before, like in this video, I believe, about you really need to consistently remind yourself your journey is your journey, which is really difficult with social media today. The next 5 years and the next 10 years, to me, I feel like are going to be very, very exciting, because I don't like the word career, but I feel like my purpose is going to solidify, or just to take form. Like, it's been so invisible, just having to believe in myself, and like having no one else around me supporting me or believing in me. It's been hard and difficult, but starting to like actualize these things into the world. And also means like a lot of acceptance. Like, I feel like to create anything, you really need a lot of acceptance for where you are now. But to do that, you have to stop comparing. I always thought when I was younger, when I was like 16, I was like, okay, well, when I'm 27, I'm gonna I'm not 27. I'm younger than 27, but I always thought like when I'm like that age, I would get engaged. And I was like, we always have these like timelines. And I'm like, what? Like, why did we come up with these like age timelines? I don't know. And I kind of always was like, hey, I'm going to have this career and I'm going to also get married and have kids at like 30 something. There's no way I am having kids in like 5 years. With what I want to create, it's just not happening no matter what. Maybe in 10 years. Yeah. So there's like also things I've just been visualizing the future and like really getting clear on what I want. I just earlier did a podcast about what I wanted to do about love, but I really just kind of reflected on like my only really serious relationship, I guess you could say serious, I don't know, the one that really impacted me. I really just kind of like talked about that because I've never really talked about it. Like, I've just been so silent about it. Maybe in the future I'll make another podcast talking about the future and like the way I view that, and why I think purpose in my 20s, because you can make your time. It doesn't not even have to be your 20s. Like, you can make your life into whatever you want to make it into. Like, you don't have to follow what society wants of you. But I definitely won't. Like, I would never like have kids, oh my god, because of society. But sometimes like it's so ingrained within your DNA because of like that's how it's been ingrained in us in our womb for so long. And you really have to like get clear of, is this my voice? Is this conditioning? Like, sometimes you think you want something and you don't really, like, you literally think it's you that wants that, but maybe your soul wants something else. Like, maybe your soul wants a different path for you. Maybe your soul does want that, but it's later. So I think it's just like getting clear on like what really works for you in your life. And I think that's like the real way to fulfillment, and not just your 20s. Anyways, I'm so tired. It's like 3 a.m. I'm going to get better at doing these, have a better system. I really want to improve on is I feel like I've just been this like wild child, free as a bird in my 20s. I really feel like I have had that, but I'm really feeling this like call to lock in which I always thought was like kind of toxic. These people, I saw this thing about this guy saying how traveling in your 20s is a distraction. I don't know. Some people think it is, some people think it isn't. I think it's just like following what calls to you, listening to your soul and listening to your body and ignoring everyone else. It's the only way that you'll find your path, and opportunities and things will appear for you only if you're willing to take the risk. And there's never a risk when you're following your soul. You'll be faced, a lot of things will come up, like uncertainty, fear of like lack of stability, all these things, but that teaches you that you can create it from within, because you can create anything from within.